Okay, it's 6:30, so we're going to get started. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Community Center Solar Garden subscription webinar. I'm Jen Hassebrook. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Eden Prairie. Eden Prairie is proud to be partnering with Cooperative Energy Futures to build a rooftop community solar garden that is exclusively available to residents of Eden Prairie to become subscribers. This project makes solar available for residents who may otherwise be unable to participate due to cost, ownership, or other siting barriers. And it supports the city's climate action plan goal of achieving carbon neutrality in the community by 2050. A couple of logistical notes about the webinar. So your audio and video is not available. If you have a question during the course of the webinar, please enter it into the chat and we will answer questions at the end of the presentation. If you would prefer to speak to somebody one-on-one about your questions, please contact Cooperative Energy Futures directly at 612-568-2334 during their regular business hours. We will also be hosting an in-person workshop on Wednesday, August 4th at 6:30 at the Eden Prairie City Center downstairs in the Heritage Rooms. Feel free to come then and chat about your questions as well. And all of this contact information and event info is available on the city's website. So with that, I'd like to introduce tonight's presenter. Timothy Denherter Thomas is the co-founder and general manager for Cooperative Energy Futures, the city's development partner for this project. CEF is a community-owned clean energy cooperative, and it serves members across Minnesota since 2009. So thank you for coming, and welcome, Timothy.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to share my screen and go through some slides about what we do at Cooperative Energy Futures. I just wanted to say by way of introduction that we really appreciate the opportunity to partner with community-based organizations and local governments like the City of Eden Prairie to develop projects that are really focused on serving community needs. So again, we're Cooperative Energy Futures. We're a Minneapolis-based but Minnesota-wide community solar cooperative. We have about 940 members across the state, including a number in Eden Prairie from a previous project that we developed over at Christi Catholic Church. So I assume many of you are familiar with what community solar is, but I wanted to start out with just a really brief introduction using some of the materials from the Clean Energy Resource Teams, which is a really great independent organization that provides information to Minnesota residents about community solar. So to keep it really simple, what is a community solar garden? A community solar garden is a project where solar photovoltaic panels are installed in a sunny location, in this case at the community center at Eden Prairie, to produce clean electricity. Individuals, in this case primarily households in Eden Prairie, can subscribe to enough solar to cover up to 120% of your annual electric usage. And then each subscriber's utility bill is credited with the electricity created by their portion of the solar garden. This is a statewide program that is currently required of Xcel Energy in accordance with the state law that was passed in 2013. And other utilities across the state are allowed to implement the program, but not required to do so. The key thing to understand about community solar is that you're still going to receive an Xcel Energy bill. You still pay Xcel for the energy you use. But now on your bill, Xcel is also paying you for the clean energy that you produce from the solar garden in a way that offsets your use. So we'll go through an example of that a little bit later. A community solar developer like us, like Cooperative Energy Futures, makes that possible. There's a lot more details about community solar at the Clean Energy Resource Team's website that's shown here. And again, this whole presentation is recorded. So if you need to access that link, it'll be available. Really highlighting here that this is a three-part relationship. Xcel Energy is required to credit community solar garden subscribers on their bill. And then solar subscribers make payments to a community solar garden company, in this case, a member-owned co-op, Cooperative Energy Futures. We'll talk a little bit more about how those payments are structured a bit later. Wanted to do a really quick comparison of how does community solar, for example, this project at the community center, compare with on-site solar, like you might imagine on your roof or connected to your meter. And this is just a really important distinction because we get a lot of questions about, well, how does this connect to my home, or how does the energy get to me, that sort of thing. So we just wanted to go through a quick comparison. In community solar, the opportunity to subscribe is really open to just about anyone with an Xcel electric bill. You can be a homeowner, you can be a renter, you can be a landlord who pays a utility bill. Really anyone who pays an Xcel electric bill can subscribe. You don't need to have good solar access where you live. So if your home is shaded by trees or has other obstructions, that's really not a barrier, because again, we're putting solar at a good solar location at the community center. There's no physical changes at your home. We don't need to do any new wiring. There's nothing happening with your meter. It's really quite a simple process. It's really all about what happens financially through your electric bill. Most of our subscribers pay monthly without any upfront cost, or you can pay upfront if you prefer. There's a couple of different options, which we'll talk about a little bit later. There's no debt obligations, so you're not taking out a loan or any other kind of financial security there. Key thing is that you don't receive solar tax credits from this. That's something that we process internally as a co-op with investors. So how does this compare with on-site solar? So first of all, if you're going to install solar on your own property, you have to own your own building and pay an electric bill there. That can be a really good fit for many households, and we really encourage you to go solar at your own house if you can, if it makes sense. But that's not something that everyone can do. Your home needs to have a good solar exposure, not a lot of tree cover or anything like that. The panels are physically going to be installed on your roof, and they're going to be wired to your electric meter. So those are the key physical changes if you're installing solar on site. Usually with on-site solar, you're paying up front. This requires, depending on your size of solar system, $10,000 to $20,000 or even more in cash or loans that you need to come up with. It usually involves personal debt, again, unless you're covering the whole thing out of pocket on the front end. And you do receive the solar tax credits in an on-site solar approach. So these are just a really clear distinctions of how community solar and on-site solar are different. Now you might ask, if community solar is, has all of these features that make it much more accessible for many more people in our communities, why isn't everyone doing it? And there's a couple answers to that. The first is, to a certain extent, this has already been a wildly popular approach to solar in Minnesota. This is a chart using Minnesota Department of Commerce data showing the expansion of different types of solar across the state. Now, this dark gray at the bottom that's called distributed, this is the annual installations of all the solar that's being built on individual households' rooftops, as well as on all the business rooftops that are using the solar energy for their own use. So this is using what's called net metering. The light gray is solar that utilities are building to supply all of us at a very large scale. And this rapidly growing yellow chunk is community solar. So these are projects that are located in central locations and crediting many different energy users via their utility bills. You can see that in many years, this is now becoming the most widely used form of solar energy. And while the Department of Commerce hasn't released in graphical form their 2019 and 2020 data, this trend has just continued. Now, a really key thing, and one of the key reasons that we exist as Cooperative Energy Futures, is just because all of this community solar is being developed doesn't mean that it's necessarily equitable or accessible. In fact, over 85% of the community solar that's being developed to date is being subscribed by corporate or institutional subscribers. So corporations, cities, universities, schools. Less than 15% is residential. This means that the vast majority of those subscription benefits are not available to residents. The other thing is that even within that residential chunk, most developers are not offering subscriptions to low income or low credit individuals. So there's some big equity and access barriers here that we as a cooperative are really setting out to address. So here's what we believe. We believe that the community and community solar should represent a number of things. First of all, community-wide access. Everyone in our community should be able to participate, including renters, low-income households, communities of color. As I mentioned, a lot of these groups have been underserved in Minnesota's community solar market as a whole, and we have a very strong focus on that as a co-op. Second, community creation. We really believe in partnering with local governments and community-based organizations to really envision and launch projects that benefit the community. And the collaboration here with the city of Eden Prairie is a really great example of that. Third, community ownership. We really believe that local people who participate in community solar should have control and reap the benefits of projects. Because we're a co-op, all of our subscribers become member owners, and that means a direct decision-making by voting in our board elections, having the opportunity to run for the board, and other key member decisions about where we're going to go as a co-op. And then finally, community wealth. And this ties in with the same piece with profit sharing, as well as how are we facilitating job creation and local business development to ensure that community solar is really equitably benefiting our communities. So that's a little bit about what we stand for, and I'll share a little bit about how we put that into practice. This is a launch event for our first community solar garden. This was at the roof of Shiloh Temple in North Minneapolis. This was an event where we brought together the pastor of the church, the imam of a nearby mosque, local residents who are subscribing, local residents who are involved in building the array, and local elected officials who helped pull this together, really to celebrate the launch of the first example of cooperative clean energy being developed here in Minnesota via the community solar model. This is a part of the workforce crew that was trained through a program in North Minneapolis and then worked on installing this project, as well as the project that we developed in Edina and in the Pax Christi project in the Eden Prairie. One of these folks is both a subscriber to our community solar gardens and then actually more recently ran for and was elected to our board of directors. So we really believe in kind of closing the loop there in terms of communities being able to play all of the roles, using the energy, having access to the jobs, and being part of the decision-making structure. This is another project. I mentioned the project we did on the roof of the Edina Public Works building. I think this is a very similar project in a lot of ways to what we're getting started here on the Eden Prairie Community Center. It's a partnership with the city, focused specifically on serving residents of the city, in this case, residents of Edina. And it's a pretty large project. The Eden Prairie site will actually be even a larger system than this, but it gives you a little bit of a sense of what it looks like to build a large solar array on a rooftop on a public building. And again, in this case, there are over 70 households across the city who are subscribed and getting benefits on their electric bill from this project. This is the project located right now in Eden Prairie on the roof of Pax Christi Catholic Church. It's a much smaller project, so it has a smaller number of households participating, but it was really where we established initial connections with City of Eden Prairie that have led to the project that we're talking about today. We also do some rural projects. This is just an example of one of our sites with some of our pollinator landscaping just outside of Faribault, Minnesota. Which is a collaboration where we've been able to bring together local residents from farming communities, as well as residents in manufactured housing parks and affordable housing down in Faribault, Northfield, some of the neighboring towns. We've also done some really complicated and challenging projects like this one in downtown Minneapolis. This is Ramp A. It's the parking garage right next to Target Field and Target Center. This was a fascinating project where we basically built a canopy over a large parking ramp so that residents of Minneapolis could subscribe and also have a project like this located right in the heart of the city. Very large system, over 1 megawatt in size. And it meant that we had to solve some really interesting engineering challenges, which led to finance challenges, while at the same time working with the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota Department of Transportation, and the Federal Highway Administration. So we've had a lot of experience working in pretty complicated situations to get these projects done. I also really wanted to emphasize that throughout all of this, we're really focused on bringing communities together. This was a celebration and launch event that we hosted. This was October of 2019, just shortly before the pandemic started, um, bringing together a number of the members and community supporters for the launch of our Ramp A community solar project. And we really like to host these kinds of events. And again, we hope to be doing a lot more of that in the years to come as things start to get back to normal. So I wanted to take a little bit of a pause and just talk about really what does it mean to be a co-op and who are we as a co-op. Many of you may be familiar with co-ops, but we really like to describe them as, in some ways, very similar to a traditional business. It has a board of directors. It has a group of people choosing the board of directors. The board of directors sets organizational policies, chooses employees, a general manager, and then serves customers. The really key difference is that in a co-op, the customers, in this case, people subscribing to community solar, are also member owners. And that means really two things. One, our members are the people who are choosing our board of directors, and our board of directors is made up of members. This really ensures that at the top level, the guidance and steering of our organization is directed based on member interests, based on ensuring that people in our communities who benefit from these projects are really getting the best deal possible. And in comparison to many other community solar developers, we've seen that flow through into much more personable and thorough customer service and engaging members' questions both before and during projects are in operation. Also having terms of our subscription agreements that are much more user-friendly and to the benefit of subscribers in terms of making it easy if you have to move or transfer, for example. And then secondly, as members, we distribute our organizational profits to our members in proportion to their use. So this is really key in terms of shifting how our energy system works from one in which the profits of our energy system are flowing to shareholders, formerly in a utility, who are often outside of our communities, outside of the state, to those profits recirculating in our community and coming back to us. It's very key to who we are as a co-op. Wanted to really frame, and we like to talk about this with our members as a key choice. Right now, where we're sending our energy dollars is to large utilities that are organized as monopolies, meaning we really don't have a choice about where those energy dollars go. We don't have very much power to choose a different alternative. Yes, there are regulations that happen at the State Public Utilities Commission that say, yes, you can build this power plant, or no, you can't build that power plant. But day to day, most of us really don't have very much say in those decisions. And even as Xcel and other utilities are starting to make the transition towards clean energy, there's still many proposals to build new gas and other fossil fuel power plants at a time when we really know we have to be making a very quick transition to clean energy. That has also led to rising energy costs. Increasingly, coal in particular is a very expensive energy source, and many of the other ways of producing and distributing energy have contributed to steadily rising energy costs over time. And then we see that impact in terms of health, safety, especially in low-income communities and communities of color across the state, as well as communities where energy is extracted. Community solar is really one step in a different choice. It's a choice to produce clean energy and use clean energy for our own use, but it's also a choice to bring ownership and control back to our communities, to groups of people working together to make our energy local. It's a way to lock in lower cost energy over time because we can create a lot of cost stability with a long-term clean energy source because the sun is free. And that creates opportunities as a co-op for us to start looking at what else can we do? Can we start to make it much more accessible and easy for people to upgrade our homes so that they're more energy efficient and have more modernized smart technology? Can we make it easier for electric vehicles to become widespread by working as a co-op? Can we do district heating? There's all sorts of things that having a cooperative that is building wealth together allows us to start looking at. So the steps if you want to get involved. First of all, join us. This conversation is really about becoming a subscriber. The City of Eden Prairie has really generously offered to host a site in the community for Eden Prairie residents. We also, over time, have opportunities to invest in the co-op and obviously share the word, spread the word with other people in the community. In specific, there's several different steps in the process of signing up. First of all, many of you have probably already joined the pre-registration waiting list. We're not yet accepting subscriptions, but by signing up on this waiting list, basically you'll be the first to know when we open, probably in the next month or so. We are waiting on final negotiations back and forth with Xcel Energy to get all of our documents signed to connect to the grid, at which point we'll really be able to open the project for subscriptions. Again, we expect that roughly in the next month. The first step is that we'll reach out to you to sign what's called a subscriber agency agreement. This is an agreement between you and Xcel, and it really does two things. One, it allows Xcel to send us information about your past energy usage, and that allows us to then create a subscription offer that meets your energy use. The other thing it does is it allows us to kind of register your account in Xcel's system so that once you've actually signed a subscription, you can get credits from Xcel. There's no commitment at this stage. It's really just kind of setting up the logistics so that we can interact with Xcel Energy around your energy needs and then provide an offer to you. At that point, we'll also be able to discuss, what are you looking for? Are you looking for kind of the maximum to cover your full usage? Do you want to subscribe pay-go on an ongoing basis or paying upfront if that's what you prefer? And answer other questions that you have. Once we get the data back from Xcel, which usually takes a few weeks, we'll provide a subscription offer. This will basically say, here's how much solar will, on average, offset your energy use based on your past usage. And here's what it would look like to subscribe, the financial terms, the legal documents, talk about all the scenarios. We'll be able to then have a subscription consultation to answer your questions. And we are actually having some discussions about maybe doing some of these as group sessions or online group sessions, just because we've found over time in our past projects that it's really helpful for subscribers to be able to talk it over with other people in the room or hear questions that somebody else asked that you might not think of right away. So you'll have the option about whether you want to do that one-on-one or come to just kind of office hours sessions where we'll talk that through. Then finally, you actually, if you want to go forward, you'll sign your documents. You'll sign your subscription agreement, which governs how the subscription works, how you'll get credit on your bill, how you'll pay for it, your membership agreement, being a part of the co-op, and then whatever payment authorization you choose to go with. That's really the point at which you're committed. Again, I would say expect roughly a month to 6 weeks after you sign your subscription agency agreement, unless you wish to take longer making a decision. And then basically you're in a holding pattern until the project begins operation. We're trying to target that waiting period for 6 months or less. It's a little bit out of our control because of Xcel's schedule, but really you don't pay anything else unless you chose to subscribe up front until the project begins operation. At that point, you'll start receiving bill credits on your bill, and you will pay your monthly invoices again unless you subscribed up front. So that's a basic overview of what it looks like to sign up. Just a quick refresh. How exactly does this work? We're building a clean energy facility on the roof of the community center. That project is going to deliver clean electricity to Xcel Energy's grid. Under the Community Solar Garden law, Xcel Energy is then required to effectively pass through that energy to households and credit you for the energy that you produce. So you're not actually getting any new electrical connection. Xcel is delivering you electricity just like they are right now. but you're getting credited for producing energy onto the grid. And because the grid is a big network, that then gets credited towards your usage at your own home. So what exactly is this project? It's a 1 megawatt roughly solar project. We're expecting about 1.2 million kilowatt hours per year. For many of us, exactly what does a kilowatt hour or what does 1.2 million kilowatt hours mean is a little abstract. So just for rough ballpark, an average household in Minnesota will use about 8,000 kilowatt hours per year. So that gives you a little bit of a sense. This is about enough power for 150 households. This project is available specifically to residents of Eden Prairie, largely on a first come, first served basis, although we're reserving about 25% of the capacity for specific targeted outreach to engage low-income residents, renters, other marginalized communities, just to make sure that there really is access being built into this project. A rough timeline, again, subject to Xcel availability. We expect that we'll be able to open subscriptions sometime in July. We'll obviously let you know when that happens. We need about 60% or more of the project subscribed before we can begin construction. This is a really key criteria for project financing, since again, we're putting in, it's a little over $2 million into this project. And our financing partners need to know there's people in the project before we actually move to construction. Construction is expected to start sometime this fall. Again, that could push into early 2022. And we're expecting operations sometime in the spring of 2022. Very rough timeline, we'll keep you updated, but just to give you a sense of how the process will roll out, we're really targeting getting subscriptions filled basically between now and the end of the year, with again, a big push over the next few months. Here's a really rough site plan. Not intending to go into this in any detail, but just so you can get a picture, here's the community center. You can actually see that there's a kind of small demonstration solar project already on the roof. That is really separate from this. It's just providing power to the building. And we're intending to use most of the available space on the roof for this project, again, to serve about 150 community residents. There's some areas of the roof that it just didn't make sense to use, either because of roof age or some structural issues, or because there's shading from other rooftop units. And then we're providing power onto Xcel's energy grid up at this northern side of the building. So what happens once the project is actually producing energy? So again, keep in mind, Xcel Energy is currently charging you for the power that they're delivering to you. We're going to size your subscription to produce roughly about as much power as you use. And then the utility will charge you for the power they deliver to you, but now they'll also pay you through a bill credit on your monthly utility bill for the power that's produced by your portion of the solar garden. This will eliminate or reduce what you owe on your bill. It all depends on, month by month, how much energy is produced by solar versus how does your energy use change. Here's just an example. This is actually from my bill. I'm a community solar subscriber. This is my bill in June. I'm under a slightly different rate structure, but you can get a good sense here. You'll still get a bill for all your normal charges, whatever energy you use, so on and so forth. But then you'll have this new section of your bill. I'm in a project that has been operating for a little over a year and a half. So it's getting close to 2 years now. And you'll basically get a credit. You'll be being paid per kilowatt hour for the energy you use. Now you can see in this month, my household only used 405 kilowatt hours, and our solar garden produced over 800 kilowatt hours. We had a very good production month in April, and we had pretty low energy use in April. So we ended up getting a much larger bill credit for April production than we used during the same period. So we actually had a substantial negative balance on our bill that rolled over into the next month. And that's a relatively common thing. I will note that the rate that we're getting compensated for is based on a previous year project. So the per kilowatt hour compensation rate will be different. We can talk through all of those details as we go forward. Subscriber benefits. Okay, so most of our subscribers are paying what we call pay-as-you-go. So there's really no upfront cost other than becoming a CEF member. And you pay less each month than the bill credits you receive on your utility bill. So this is, I'll just pause and say that again. Most of our subscribers, their experience of community solar is I don't pay anything upfront other than becoming a CEF member, which is 25 bucks. And then every month I pay Cooperative Energy Futures an amount that is lower than the discount I receive on my Xcel energy bills. There's an immediate savings. We've found this to be a really powerful way to create access for renters and low-income households, but it's a good solution for everyone. There is also the option to subscribe upfront, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Here's what it looks like to subscribe pay-as-you-go. So you're subscribing for a percent of the project, 1%, maybe 0.5%, depending on your usage, based on your historic energy use. To participate, you purchase a $25 CF membership. As a pay-as-you-go subscriber, there's no other upfront cost. Each month, you get credited for your percentage of the solar project's production. And under the 2020 value of solar, which is the compensation rate for this project, you get paid by Xcel for that energy at 10.9 cents per kilowatt hour. So if your production that month is 100 kilowatt hours, your credit is $10.90. If it's 1,000 kilowatt hours, it's $109. It'll depend on the size of your subscription and how much energy is produced that month. That same month, you'll pay Cooperative Energy Futures for that same number of kilowatt hours based on the project production. And the rate you pay us at is at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So you can see there's a little bit less than a cent savings there. This is an opportunity to participate in clean energy, and it actually costs less than your current electricity. Now, I won't get too far into the details, but that 10.9 cents per kilowatt hour escalates over time based on a predictable 25-year schedule at roughly 2.25% per year. So what you get paid by Xcel goes up every year per kilowatt hour. What you pay CEF goes up 1.5% per year for only the first 10 years. We need that to make the financials work, but after that first 10 years, we basically have enough revenue locked in to support the project, and so we want to give those savings back to our members. This means that that savings is going to increase year over year, especially in the later years of the project, so it becomes more and more valuable over time, and it helps protect our members from rising costs of energy. Now, key things. If you move in the general area, you can transfer your subscription to new address. Now, key things are you still have to be an Xcel customer at your new address, and you have to be in the same or adjacent county as the project. So if you move to California, we can't help you. Or even if you move to Rochester, which is served by a municipal utility, we can't help you. But if you move in Eden Prairie or even in a surrounding community during the project lifetime, you can transfer your subscription to the new address. We will have to resize your subscription based on your usage at the new address. And so there's some paperwork involved, but it's not like you're committing to stay in your property long-term, or even that you have to receive those benefits at that current property. You also have the option, if you're moving, to transfer your subscription to a new subscriber that you identify, or you can terminate your subscription and transfer it back to us. We basically have a 3-month penalty if you terminate your subscription, meaning you'll have to pay for 3 months of subscription use. But we've made that pretty simple by just asking our subscribers to give us 3 months notice. If you give us 3 months notice and you pay your subscription for that remaining 3 months, we'll find a subscriber to replace you to take over after that period. We want this to be as easy as possible for our members. So how does this look if you choose to subscribe upfront? And again, for overall financial model, we need some subscribers to do this. We generally find some people prefer to do this because it's a way to kind of put money in on the front end and not have to pay very much for energy for the next 25 years. But it's a less common option. Maybe 5 or 10% of our subscribers do this. What does that look like? In some ways, it's very similar. You subscribe for 1% of the project based on your historic use. You purchase a $25 CF membership, just as before. But now you're also paying upfront for the kilowatts, meaning the capacity of the solar that will meet your own household's needs. We're charging $17.50 per kilowatt upfront. Each month, you're getting credited for your percent of project production based on that same 10.9 cents a kilowatt hour with the same escalation schedule. But now you're not paying CF a monthly fee, meaning you get a lot more savings month by month from being a part of it, paying back your upfront investment, basically. Now, once a year, you do pay CEF an annual maintenance fee. This is just to help cover the operation and maintenance of your part of the solar garden. Again, that's $20 a kilowatt. Most households are somewhere in the range of 5 to 9 kilowatts. So you can get a little bit of a sense of what your upfront investment and your annual maintenance fee would be. But again, we'll talk through all of those details when we size a subscription for your own use. And then very similar to the pay-as-you-go subscription, if you move in the same area, you can transfer your subscription to the new address. You can also transfer it to a new subscriber or terminate. Of course, the key thing here is if you exit, like you're no longer a subscriber, we will pay you the prorated value of your subscription when we resell that subscription to a new subscriber. Yeah, it gives you a little bit of a sense of how it works if you choose to subscribe upfront. Finally, now that you're a subscriber in this project, you have the opportunity to participate in the co-op. We have annual meetings. Our staff is always on call if you have questions or like, I'd really like to see more of this happening in our community. We want to get involved in launching a new project or even something outside of community solar in the future. You get to vote in our board elections. You can run for a board. All of these opportunities to engage and collaborate with other members of the community in local energy solutions. Here's some links. First is just general website for more information. Second is that same sign up form. Many of you may already have signed up at this form, in which case we have your information, and then our basic contact information. Finally, I just wanted to highlight, this is really a first step in a much longer process of creating an energy system that works for us, an energy system that is really rooted in community, rooted in building community wealth, bringing the opportunities for energy development back to the local level and doing it in a way that works for the climate, works for future generations. I want to thank you for coming, and we'll dive really quickly here into questions and answers, and look forward to working with you as this process goes forward.
Great. Thank you, Timothy. So I will just read down the list of questions, and if you want to go ahead and give an answer, Timothy, I think that'd probably work easiest. So the first question we have was from Nicole. Can businesses participate in community solar projects? Is that only for Eden Prairie businesses, or could any Xcel Energy business sign up?
So yeah, businesses are allowed to participate in community solar gardens. As I mentioned earlier, actually statewide, most of the community solar subscriptions are serving businesses. This project, we're largely focusing on residents. Financially, there's some challenges with serving a lot of small businesses, which is one of the issues with the program. So this project is really focused on residents, but we may be able to accommodate some Eden Prairie businesses depending on the type of response that we get.
All right, thank you. Next question is from Catherine. How does this compare with the solar options available through the power companies, specifically Xcel?
Yeah, so there are really two solar options available for residents through Xcel. The first is what's called solar rewards. So this is basically like putting solar on your own roof. And I did a comparison a little bit earlier. There are pretty substantial incentives for that kind of solar. This year, Xcel will pay you an extra 7 cents a kilowatt hour for the first 10 years if you choose that option. But obviously you have to have a good roof that's not shaded. You have to work with a contractor, kind of figure out all the construction, and probably you have to put out 10 to 20,000, even more sometimes, depending on your usage, to make that possible. So it requires a lot more debt or investment. There is also a program that Xcel offers called, I'm gonna forget the name of it. Renewable Connect, which is a mix of solar and wind offerings that customers can sign up for. I don't know if they have a new batch of Renewable Connect open, but they ran one about a year ago. And again, you're basically in that case getting credits on your utility bill. Sorry, you're getting credit for being part of a solar and wind project, but they actually charge a premium for that, similar to wind source.
Okay. Next question's from Claire. What kind of other jobs or careers are there in the solar energy sector other than the installation jobs you touched on? Is this something you see continuing to grow?
Yeah, there's a lot of jobs in the solar sector, and installation itself is probably about half or a little less. Obviously, there's the manufacturing end, which isn't necessarily local. There is one panel manufacturer still operating in Minnesota, but there's a lot of manufacturing jobs in the solar industry. But then there's also a lot of just development. So going through the process of design, putting projects together, project management, financing work. That's a lot of what we do at CEF. Engaging customers, whether that's individual solar sales or engaging subscribers. There's a lot of different roles involved in solar. And then, of course, the long-term operations and maintenance. All of those are growing very rapidly in recent years. I think the growth rate in Minnesota has been roughly 30% per year of that industry. Solar is one of the fastest growing job sectors in the US economy, and we'd expect that to continue for a good long while.
Great. Next question's from Joan. I will be moving into a new house and I don't know the energy uses and they may change compared to the previous owner. Can my subscription amount be changed over time?
Yeah, so when we're sizing a subscription, there's really two ways to do it. The primary one is sizing based on at least 4 months of your historic use. So if you're moving into a new home, you probably don't have at least 4 months of historic use. The other option is that Xcel will allow you to do a usage estimate based on the square footage of the property you're moving into, but you need kind of like a professionally certified square footage, like from a realty agency or, if you're a renter from the previous landlord. So we can size your subscription based on that square footage if you don't have historic use. If there is space available in the project, we can modify your subscription size over time. The issue is that, we really aim to fill up the project on the front end. So once the project is 100% full, we would only have additional space to add to your subscription if somebody drops out or transitions to a location where they're not eligible.
Okay, next question's from Nicole. The out-of-pocket costs, are they more or less than if you're using standard energy utilities?
So if you're subscribing as a pay-as-you-go subscriber, which is the vast majority of our members, you are paying less per month than you would pay for your current utility use. So there is a net savings for participating. You are paying a $25 membership fee up front, but your savings for most customers will be easily $60 to $100 within the first year, if not more, if you have higher energy use.
Okay, and also from Nicole, does Xcel earn profits from this cooperative?
So Xcel does not earn profits from the cooperative. Keep in mind that you will still be paying Xcel for some portion of your energy costs, whatever is not covered by the project, and that will include some amount of Xcel profits. But no, for the portion of this that you are subscribing to for community solar, Xcel does not earn a profit off of that.
Okay, next question from Candy. Do you only do large scale community projects or do you also do individual home installations? If not, do you have any recommendations for home installations? And what is the time frame commitment if I end up getting a home installation, or would it make sense to have both?
Sure. So as Cooperative Energy Futures, we are not very focused on individual home installations right now. We are doing some bulk buying programs, particularly for low-income residents, just because that's kind of a specialization of ours. But there are many other installers that we work with that do home installations, and we could recommend a number of names I mean, I can rattle off a few. All Energy Solar does a lot of this. Powerfully Green does a lot of this. Apadana Solar Technologies does a lot of home installations. True North. There's a whole range of different solar companies that can help you install solar on your individual home. One of the key questions based on the size of your roof is going to be how much solar can you actually produce on your own roof. What we find is that many households just don't physically have enough space on their roof to cover their full usage. And so we do actually have a number of members who have solar on their roof and then subscribe to community solar for the portion that is left over at the end. We would generally want, if you're planning to get solar on your roof soon, we generally want to know that when we go into subscribing, just because it's kind of frustrating if we sign you up for, say, 9 kilowatts and then you get a 6 kilowatt system on your roof and right there 6 kilowatts is gone. So we'd like to know that so that we can just sign you up for, in that example, a 3 kilowatt subscription.
Yeah. Next question is from Claire. Do you expect to reach the 60% subscription amount needed?
We do. We have gotten a pretty phenomenal response to this project. I am at this point more worried that we won't have space for all the people who are interested than I am that we will have trouble filling this project up. So we're feeling pretty good about getting this project full.
Next question is from Joan. Are there seasonal times when there are more or less benefits than other times? For example, when snow covers the panels?
Yes, that's a really great question. The benefits of community solar are definitely very seasonal. So the amount of bill credit you will get on your bill in June is quite a lot. May, June, July. You'll probably get more credit in those months than the entirety of your Xcel bill. So you'll probably have a negative balance during that period. Again, November, December, January, February, production is usually not very good, both because the days are just a lot shorter and because snow cover can be an issue. What you'll generally see is you'll likely build up some excess bill credits in the summer, and then those will help cover your Xcel bill for at least part of the fall and maybe into the winter. With the current bill credits, it's kind of unlikely that you would have a net negative balance over time. But if you were to have a net negative balance, meaning you don't pay Xcel anything and you have a negative balance, they do have to cut you a check once a year every March.
Next question from Jim. How often does the equipment need to be maintained, damage, end of life cycle, et cetera, and who bears that cost?
Sure. So solar panels are very resilient, as are the inverters and other components of the system. We don't usually have to do very much repair or maintenance of most of the equipment. We do annual preventative maintenance as part of our operations and maintenance work. That's just making sure that all the connections are tight. There's no electrical issues with the system, any of that. The main component that we do expect to replace on these systems is the inverters, which usually only last somewhere between 10 and 15 years. So the life of a community solar garden is about 25 years because both that's how Xcel designs the program and also panels are warranted for 25 years. So we expect roughly one inverter replacement for the system during that life. We as Cooperative Energy Futures take on that operations and maintenance responsibility on behalf of our members. So we use the revenue that we receive from members, first and foremost, to cover all of the operating expenses, including maintaining and fixing any damages to the system. And then obviously to cover the upfront financing cost and whatever residual we return to our members.
Great. Questions from Kyle. How do solar credits work when my residential bill is using the Xcel pilot program? Time of use, flex pricing. Great question.
Yep, that's a great question. And we also have that program in South Minneapolis and have a number of subscribers experiencing that. I might actually pull up one of the slides I shared just so that I can illustrate something. Give me just a second. Okay, so this is just the example bill again. This is not a flex pricing bill, but again, you can see you have all of your normal usage charges, and then you have your credit for your community solar production. So what you're going to see with the time of use bill is this is going to be modified. This top section is going to be modified, and you're going to have different pricing based on the time of day, but you're still going to have a total that you owe. And then after all of that happens, and separate from the time of use program, you're going to get credits for your community solar garden. So you'll still see all of your energy use charges under a time of use schedule, and then you'll see your bill credits, and the bill credits will offset whatever you owe.
Great. This question's from William. What's the expected life of the solar garden?
Yeah, that's 25 years, based both on the contracts with Xcel and also the warranties on the panels.
Next question's from Kyle. Are the solar credits considered taxable income?
Yeah, we we always have to be careful here to say we are not tax advisors, but the state law was designed so that bill credits are just a reduction in your utility expense, and they should not be considered taxable income. But again, with the disclaimer that we're not tax professionals and we don't speak for the IRS.
Great. Next question. If I start out paying monthly, can I change later and pay off the entire amount?
I would say usually no. So again, the monthly subscription payment, it's not like a financing payment. It's not a loan. You're just paying per kilowatt hour. So purchasing an upfront subscription based on that would, it's not exactly a one-to-one. We have to sort of design our project financials based on a projection of pay-as-you-go revenue with the upfront investment. There may be certain circumstances in which we can accommodate that, but we can't guarantee or commit that we can do that.
Next question's from Jim. I'm a WindSource user. What impact, if any, does that have on joining the cooperative?
It doesn't really. You can be a WindSource customer at the same time as being a community solar garden subscriber. Again, you'll just see the usually pretty minor additional cost of WindSource on your bill. And then after all of your charges on your bill, you'll see the bill credits for community solar. And again, that's a great way to be able to count. With WindSource, you can say I'm using renewable energy because it gives you the renewable energy credits. You don't get to exactly say that with community solar because Xcel requires that Xcel gets the renewable energy credits. So you can say with community solar that I'm producing renewable energy, but WindSource is a great way to be able to say I'm producing solar energy that's saving me money, and I'm paying a little bit extra to also be able to say I'm using clean energy.
Next question, could you give us the costs in a mock-up of a subscriber upfront situation with actual numbers? Is the KW cost per month or per year?
The KW cost up for an upfront subscriber is actually just the upfront cost one time. So I could do some really rough math. Again, we'll do this with detailed math for you and your situation once we size your subscription. But just to give you a ballpark, if you're a 5 kilowatt subscriber, which I'd say is, on the lower to average end, your upfront cost, meaning when you first start out, what you put into the project is going to be $8,750. And then every year you will pay $100 in annual maintenance. Your production is going to be about 6,000 kilowatt hours for a subscription of that size. So your benefit from that production is about it's about $700 per year, although that will rise over time. And
then is there financial savings to buying into the program upfront rather than over time.
Yes, there is more savings if you subscribe upfront, but again, that's savings over the long term. So you're obviously putting a lot more money in on the front end. By the end of 25 years, you'll have saved a lot more, but it will take you, most of our projects are in the range of 12 to 14 years to break even, and then you'll save more money after that.
Sure. Okay, that's the end of the questions in the chat. You see we have one person with their hand up. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat, because unfortunately we won't be able to answer them otherwise. So I'll just give it a second here, make sure we don't have any other questions before we wrap up. What happens after the 25-year life of this project?
Yep. So the default option, meaning if nothing else changes in the next 25 years, at the end of the 25-year life, we are responsible for decommissioning the system, meaning taking the panels off the roof, taking the racking off, really removing the system and putting the roof back into its original condition. Now, we obviously have the option, depending on what's going on, 22, 23 years from now, to renegotiate with the city of Eden Prairie to say, maybe there's still a community solar garden program that we can reinitiate for another 25 years. And maybe we just, maybe we're installing, 2045 era panels, which I'm sure will be, twice the production and half the cost, on the same roof, and offering that opportunity to new members. Or maybe we're just extending the life for another 10 years. Or maybe there's a way to rewire the system so that it's providing power directly to the building. There's a lot of things we could do, but because we don't really know what the policy or economic framework or even the technological environment is going to be 25 years from now, that's really a discussion we will have somewhere between 20 and 23 years from now. And until then, we assume that we are literally taking the panels off the roof.
Great, thank you. Well, I don't see any more questions, so I just wanted to thank everybody for your time tonight and your interest in this project. As a reminder, we'll be doing the same presentation in person on Wednesday, August 4th at 6:30 at City Center. Feel free to come and ask any questions you might have then. Oh, I see one more pop up. If we're on the waiting list, how long will it be before we hear from you?
Yeah, we are, we're kind of dependent on Xcel's timeline there. We're expecting it will be sometime in July. I don't know if that will be early July. I don't know if that will be late July. It could be August, but I think we'll be able to get back to everyone on the waiting list in roughly a month's time. And then it's obviously just all the back and forth steps to get you actually signed up.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, whether or not you sign up for a community solar garden subscription, I really would encourage all of you to consider any other actions you might be able to take to reduce your emissions and support clean energy. We talked a little bit about WindSource as another available program. And then, if you have any questions around the efficiency of your house or anything that you could improve, please, I'd have you consider signing up for a home energy squad visit. Those are two pretty powerful actions that you can take to reduce your home energy use. We have a lot of information available on our city website, edenprairie.org/sustainable EP. And if there's nothing else, thank you and enjoy your evening.